Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel again. So in the last videos, we studied about Victorian age of critics. We dealt with Matthew Arnold, Walter Pater. Arnold told us that poetry is a criticism of life. He told us that culture is something that is best known, thought and said in the world. We saw his attack on provincialism and Philistinism. After that came Walter Pater. Walter Pater stood against the views of Matthew Arnold. He respected him, but he stood against the views which Matthew Arnold was having. He told that life must serve art, not the other way around, that art must serve life. He gave us the concept of art for art's sake. He told that a poet should be burning with a hard gem-like flame. And he told us that how all art constantly aspire to the condition of music. He gave us the definition of a critique's job against the Matthew Arnold's definition, the purpose of poetry with which Matthew Arnold told us. So we saw the quite a shift after Romanticism into the Victorianism. It was a shift, seeing all the views drastically changing. Now, in today's video, we enter into the modern age. And the first writer which we are going to deal is T.S.Eliot. His full name was Thomas Stearns Eliot. He was born in 1888 in US. After that, he studied in Harvard, then he studied in Oxford, and then he started residing in Britain, England. So he got the British citizen afterwards. He worked as an editor in a publishing house, Favor and Favor, which really gave him the exposure and which really shaped the English language and literature culture. His main argument was quite opposite to the Romantics. His main argument was that great poetry is not the expression of personality. It is escape of personality. However, if you remember in Wordsworth, we were studying that Wordsworth was saying that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, emotions recollected in tranquility. He was saying that it is all about the personal feelings, personal imaginations. Coleridge was saying the same thing, that it is all about what the writer can create, what the writer can craft through his imagination, through his fancy. And here we see that how T.S. Eliot is saying that it is not at all the case which we are studying till now. It is all about that how we can escape from the personality which we are having. That is the true and great poetry. So the works which are important for us through the lens of literary criticism which were written by T.S. Eliot are Tradition and Individual Talent, which was published in 1919. After that, Sacred Wood in 1920 and The Metaphysical Poets 1921. These are three works which are important for us. However, he wrote quite an elusive metaphor works like The Wasteland, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. But for criticism perspective, we are going to study the points which has been mentioned in these three works. These are important for us. So the first point, the first fundamental idea which T.S. Eliot propagated was historical sense. Now, let me give you a clue. According to T.S. Eliot, if a poet is above the age of 25 and if that poet wants to be a poet for the long life or wants to continue the poet authorship, then he must have the historical sense. Now, what exactly is the historical sense? What do you understand by historical sense? Let me give you an example. He illustrated it by saying that, for example, from the starting, we have Homer, Dante, Shakespeare, Keats, Milton, Dryden, Pope, Samuel Johnson. All of the writers which we are studying, they have contributed to English language, literature, poetry, and criticism. So you should not consider them as the historical sequence of the poets who are dead and they have no any significance. No, according to T.S. Eliot, we should consider that they are still in the living conversation with us. For example, if a poet is about to write any poem, then they must consider the fact that the poets, Dante, Shakespeare, Milton, they are still in the living conversation. So if a poet is going to write anything, so he should not make him feel that he is just expressing his own personality, expressing his own ideas, living only in his mind. No, whatever he is going to propagate through his writings, it is going to add in the living conversation that has been going on from the decades, from the centuries, between the writers who have already put out their thoughts and feelings outside in the universe. Though they are physically dead, but their work that is alive. And that work is a living conversation between the writers who are present today and the writers who are dead with their thoughts. So it is a living conversation that has been going on. So you can understand it that a poet who is writing something fresh, he is not writing to change the tradition, change the thing that has been already said. No, it is, you can understand it with the word that they are going to rearrange things. For example, if you, when we read about Shakespeare, we saw Milton differently because something in us changed, something which we used to see, the capacity of us of seeing things that changed. So any writer who came, we read about him, then the other writer came, then the capacity of seeing the things changed in us. We saw Milton differently with with having the perspective of the Shakespeare's idea. So the main point is that historical sense is something which separates a true poet and a talented poet. The second point is tradition and individual talent. So T.S. Eliot thinks that poetry is about self-sacrificial, self-extinction kind of thing. It is not the expression of emotions, the same thing which I have told you in the starting of the video when we talked about romantics. Romantics were all about feeling, imagination, fancy, how they are feeling, how they can associate their feelings with the nature. The modern poets, for example, T.S. Eliot, he was saying it is as you don't have to get worried about your own personal emotions. Further, he is going to give you an example as well of platinum as a catalyst. That it is not the expression of emotion, and it shows that how he was completely opposites of romantic. He attacked romantics in certain ways. Like, for example, he says that he gives priority to metaphysical poets. How? He says the metaphysical poets like Donne, Andrew Marvell, these poets, Homer is not metaphysical, but he has written in some forms. Homer, Dante, these poets were there. They used to fuse the thoughts and feeling at the same time. For example, they had the massive knowledge, they had the intellectuality, they had massive wit, and at the same time, they did not let their feelings be less felt at the same time. But now, if you see the other poets, like you will see Keats, you will see Shelley, if they are writing, you will see that it is all about either beauty, either you can say it is mostly about how they are feeling, and it is less about the thought. So according to T.S. Eliot, it must be a balanced fusion of thoughts and feelings at the same time. Neither should be compromised when you are writing. It should be full of intellectuality, it should be full of wit, and at the same time the feeling section, that must be full of it. If you remember the John Donne's canonization or a valediction forbidden mourning, how he compares the compass with the love between two lovers, how you can see that he has shown how he can compare with the things and how we can feel the things actually, that he is in deep love with the lover. This is the true fusion of thoughts and feelings at the same time, and this is something which you can see is the true form of a great poet. Now he also gives an example of platinum. He says that imagine there are two gases in a chamber and both of them are lying independently over there. Then you introduce in that chamber platinum. After platinum comes there, the two gases that were there, they fuse into one. The platinum remains unchanged, the two gases remains unchanged, but a new gas is formed. Why? Because platinum was introduced there. So platinum works here as the catalyst, because there was no change that happened to platinum. There was no change that happened to the gas independently. But with the introduction of platinum there, with the catalyst, we saw that there was a new gas that emerges. He says, T.S. Eliot says that the poet's mind is like a catalyst. For example, whenever he is trying to write anything, the poet's mind is the catalyst. His thought, his experience, his imagination, his fancy, they all should be in certain experience. They all should explain something which is outside his mind. Like the expression, the points, whatever he is trying to make, they should be through the poet's mind, not about or of the poet's mind. That is important for us. It is not about what they are feeling, because according to T.S. Eliot, if a poet, if a person who is writing, if they will feel that it is all about the personal emotions, the expression of personal emotions, then they will feel that they will make themselves feel like obsessed of themselves. It will all be about them and nothing else. They will not even try to generate something new. and that is a default. And he says that romanticism or these things, this is the enemy of the great poetry. And by that he just meant that you can't let the one feeling of yours overpower or other. It should be in the balance, it should be in the fusion, it should be outside of your mind. The poet's mind is the catalyst, but the expression should be something else. It is not something which should be involving the poet's theory. And in the same way he talks about the impersonality theory, that how it is not at all about the poet, it is all about how he can produce through his mind. That is impersonality theory, to not be around the personal. The next point is objective correlative. Now he explained this objective correlative in the essay on Hamlet. Okay, and the point which I made about the metaphysical poets of he attacked on romanticism, that was in the metaphysical poets. Okay, and after that, the objective correlative, it is all about essay on Hamlet, and he says that it is an artistic failure. Now what does he mean by this line? His objective correlative is something like, for example, I would try to explain you with a simple example. I am feeling grief. Okay, so if I will say to you that I am feeling grief, I am not feeling that well, so it will be too direct, it will not have that essence, you will not feel that I am feeling. But if the same scenario is there, okay, and I am not telling you that I am feeling grief, but you can see that the coffee mug is half of the coffee and that is cold, the coat is still hanging on the wall and it is not washed, and something the items that is in the house, they are scattered here or there. These the situations, the objects that are lying external, that are lying outside the mind, they are showing the situation that is going inside the mind of the character. So T.S. Eliot says that the Hamlet is too vague, too confused. We are not able to know through the situation that what exactly he is feeling. We are just assuming that, okay, this is something which he might be feeling. So that is an artistic failure. The situations, objective correlative is something which is like the emotions which I am feeling. It should have an objective correlative to something outside of me. The one more point which I left when I was describing about the metaphysical poets, that thoughts of fusion and feeling is important. He told that there is one more sentence, that is unification of sensibility. I left this part. Unification of sensibility is thoughts of fusion of thoughts and feelings at the same time. Like done metaphysical poets marvel they were doing. They can write at the same point, both of the things. And on the opposite of that, the second point is also there, that is dissociation of sensibility. Now that means that the writer like Dryden, Milton, they have done this. After he says that before Civil War, we had metaphysical poets done, they were using this unification of sensibility, fusion of thoughts and feelings. But after the Civil War, we get Dryden and Milton, and we see that how they have dissociated the sensibility. They can either use their wit, intellectuality, or they can express the feeling. They can't fuse the both of the things together. Now the last point is that what does Eliot has to say on the relationship between criticism and poetry. He says that criticism and poetry are not separate entities. He says that the good critic is poet himself. The job of good critic is to make the reader feel the words which they have written. That is the job of the critic. That is the job of the poet. And critic and poet are the same. So these are some of the points that were important according to me for T.S. Eliot for literary criticism. And that's it for today. In the next video, we are going to study about I.A. Richards. And see you there.